So you ran 37 miles with only 9 weeks of prep.
That's correct.
Must be crazy, man. Tell me all about that.
Man, so I turned 37 this last week, and 9 weeks before my birthday, I decided that I wanted to do something crazy, something I had never done before. And I was going to run my age in miles on my birthday. And at the time, I had never run more than 6 miles at once in my life. So it was going to be a feat. It was going to be a challenge, and I set out to do it.
That's wild, man. For those who are not runners, just go outside right now. Run as long as you can, and then times that by 37. Because you probably only maybe ran a mile.
Right.
So where did the inspiration come from?
So it's kind of this buildup over the last year. It wasn't any one thing that made me go out and do this, but one event was about a year ago. A buddy of mine was turning 30, and someone said, what are you going to do on your birthday? And he's like, well, I think I might go out and run 30 miles. And I just remember thinking, wow, this guy, like psycho, like who does that, right? And it's tucked in the back of my mind. And over the year, I developed a desire to start running more, a desire to, kind of start running trails and kind of rewilding myself in some sense. Never had been a runner before, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'd run a couple miles here and there. But before I did this, I had never run more than 6 miles. So I set out to do this, and yeah, put together a training plan, started with ChatGPT, as anyone would at that point, and, set out to do it, hired a coach my second or third week when I realized I really had no clue what the heck I was doing, and the rest was history.
What parts of your preparation did you feel like, damn, I need to get a coach? Was it, you know, if you don't actually prepare adequately, you may not hit the target, or you just started crapping out at 6, 7 miles and you're like, okay, well, there's got to be a smarter way to do this. So, like,
Yeah.
what signals did you know you had to get a coach?
Yeah, so I truly thought I could get going without a coach at first. I just never didn't think that far ahead. My very first run that I did on this plan, I started with a long run. I started with 9 miles, and I was like, okay, because I knew I had a short runway, a really short runway. Like I'm, marathon training with less than 10 weeks. So I knew I had a short runway. So if I could start with a long run and build from there, I felt like, I'd be putting myself in a better position. So 9 miles, the next week was 11 miles, the next week was 14. I think I was looking at a 14-mile run when I realized I don't know how to fuel for this thing. I'm going to be out running for, a few hours at this point. I don't know how I should supplement my lifts. Should I be lifting the same? I've always, been familiar with bodybuilding style training. So I just started realizing I don't have a clue what I'm doing, and I'm going to injure myself, or I'm going to break down late in the game, and I need to get some help here. So I asked around, found a running coach, hired a running coach. The very first conversation I had with him, he goes, man, this isn't ideal, man. We'd really like to have more time for something like this, but
I bet
we can do it.
ChatGPT too was like, this is actually not advisable. This is dangerous to your health.
Basically, it's what it was. Like I got about 2-3 weeks into this before I really realized the magnitude of what I was setting out to do. And I never had any doubt or anything like that, but I was 2-3 weeks in, and I was like, man, okay, this is like a marathon and a half, So yeah, I was just, getting a few weeks in and realizing I had no clue what I was doing.
I love the vest that you had with the gel packs. Like, you had it down to a science. I need to get some of those things too. Just so you know, the storytelling that you did, you documented it so well. Um, the runs that I was doing this week, and it wasn't until you completed it that I actually started pushing myself. I was only maybe doing 2 miles for my workouts, getting back into running shape, but I'm like, at least I doubled it. I just
Yeah.
went up to 4 thinking like, okay, people around me are pushing themselves. I want to do that too. So it's something like a rising tide lifting all ships. Like, didn't you say it was an influencer that got you inspired too?
Yeah. Yeah. It was. So I was scrolling Instagram maybe 6 months ago at this point, and someone I didn't know, I saw a reel, and he was running the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim with his boys, which I think is like a 40-some-mile run. And he was recording, and he's like, so I keep my heart rate below 130, and John back here keeps his below 125. And I just remember thinking, one, now that's a style of training I could get behind, like the heart rate, like really, managing that. But it also clicked what these guys were doing. Like they were going camping out in the Grand Canyon, and doing these long runs together, and that was this like primal brotherhood that I was craving and desiring. So he earned my follow. Started following this guy. Started seeing the community that he's cultivating, and the stuff he does here in Austin with his brothers and everything. And it's like these intense workouts, and I was admiring it from the outside, and realized, man, this guy's doing things I'd like to be doing. He's created a room I'd love to be a part of. But if he ever said, "Hey, Josh, come with us. We're heading out west this weekend. We're gonna do this run. Come camp with us," I felt like I would have had to have declined, because I wasn't physically capable of keeping up. And ultimately, what that meant for me was I wouldn't be able to get into the room that I wanted to be in, and I never wanted to find myself in that position.
Dude, I love that. I actually want to really double down on writing your own admission ticket.
Yeah.
I've heard that put in a different way too. For example, if there's influencers, if there's YouTubers, or if there's celebrities or whatever it is, if there's people that you admire and are inspired by, and you do actually want to associate with those kind of people, because if they can do it, then you can do it too. I'd always have believed that what someone else can do, I can do. Um, but would you fit in that room if you got granted that permission ticket? So writing your own ticket is becoming the caliber of person to
Hmm.
rub shoulders with them. Curious though, do you feel ready now? Or is there still
No, yeah, I think I could. Y it's a mental thing, like, it was a mental block of, well, I don't feel I'm qualified, I don't feel I'm good enough, right? I'm an imposter. I hadn't logged the wins to be able to keep up, and yeah, going on a bike ride with these guys or run with these guys, maybe you get, yeah, of course I get smoked, right? They've been doing this for years. But I'm on the path of becoming the type of person who does that, right? I was before we started recording, I was chatting with you about the cold plunges. I was the type of guy until 6 months ago who would always avoid the cold plunge unless, the boys were like, "Oh, we're all doing this." I would do it, but you would never see me in there by myself when nobody was watching, and I would always avoid that. And it was just this quiet buildup over time of, I don't want to be that kind of person that quietly avoids the discomfort always.
let me object there though, because you're a fit guy and you have a successful business, you have a thriving relationship. Is that just you just finding the pockets of maybe where you're not showing up as where you want, or like are you just being harsh on yourself?
I mean, I would say there's a lot of self critic there. I would agree to that. Um, and also, I again, I don't want to run from discomfort. I want to be the type of person who can lean into discomfort, who can normalize embracing that discomfort. So yeah, I can, maintain good physical fitness and all of that. Do I push myself near as hard as I could? Of course not. And I think, we probably all feel that to some extent. Um, so I think it's both sides, right? There's a lot of self-critic in there.
Yeah. And I just wanted to double check too, because that's maybe the common thread between people who are in the arena, high performers, high achievers, is they're always finding ways to get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
You always feel the best when you're in the pursuit of something worthy and great. Your Rocky montage.
Hmm.
So, did you feel like you were going through that Rocky montage?
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you now, the very first thing I do, so I train, I train in the morning at On It. Um, I get there at 6:30 in the morning. The very first thing when I do when I get there is I get in the cold.
Mm.
I don't even think about it. I don't negotiate with myself. It
Oh,
happens every single time I walk in those doors. So I become the type of person who now embraces that, right? And that does that change my character? Does that, do I get to wear this badge of honor because I can get in the cold water? No. But what it does for me internally, knowing I used to avoid that. I was scared of that thing, and I faced that thing first
It's
now,
painful.
It's
It's
exactly.
painful.
Exactly.
A couple big questions though. Um, is there any post accomplishment blues? Like, you hit the top of that
Mm,
mountain, what are you keeping with you? And
mm,
how is your mind adjusting to having done it?
mm.
And then later we'll get into like gruesome, excruciating pain you probably were
What
in,
I
but
did, yeah, yeah.
that's what I want to know right now.
Yeah, so what are we, 5 days out from 4 days out from this run. It was an 8-hour run.
8 hours.
8 hours. 8 hours.
Eight.
7 hours and 47 minutes.
I just remember I woke up roughly around when you did or what started, and I was just going about my day normal, and I'm like getting updates, but
Yeah. So, to answer your question, any post-run blues, not really. I have realized I want to keep setting a challenge to work toward, because what I learned about myself was when I have my eyes on something, I will do whatever it takes, right? Like the different things I did along the way to get there, those long runs, I never missed a run. I never missed a workout on the way there.
was
And
it daily
like,
running for the prep or
not daily running, I was doing 4 runs a week. My strength training completely took a backseat. I was strength training 1 to 2 times a week, so I slacked there. I would do that a little bit differently if in a perfect world, but yeah, like I was dialed, and what that showed me about myself was, dude, like when you set your eye on something, like you can tap into a whole new level of commitment. So I'm in this space now where I'm training, the Austin Marathon's coming up in 5 weeks, and I'm doing that. Um, but I'd like to set another big challenge, and maybe it's running farther, maybe it's different endurance challenge, whatever it is, I'm not sure. I'm kind of feeling into that and not rushing that decision. But there were, of course, there was a few days of like, "Oh, I don't want to train. I don't want to do this, like things like that." But that's just, I'm just needing to recover. So I haven't really noticed the blues or anything like that.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
cool. Because for some reason, I think people would say who have achieved very high levels of something do become depressed afterwards.
Hmm.
Like astronauts, a lot of them actually kind of fell into addiction. And how can you match that? But
Yeah.
it seems like I know you've cultivated a good life and community to not escape from your life with big goals. But I think it's so important to have worthy things to chase. I'm reflecting in my own life too that I'm training, but I think it's better when you're training for something where stakes are on the line that you just can't fake it. Like you
Hmm.
can't fake that you did a 37-mile run. So like it's almost like you're gonna fight somebody.
Yeah.
You could get knocked out. Like if you're climbing a mountain, you could die.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of what it was, you know, I, you commented on, I maintain decent physical fitness, right? Dude, like anybody, I fall into a rut, I coast, I half-ass it, I go do my workouts, and I skip the last exercise, or I cut the corner because there's nothing on the line. There's nobody, I'm not training for anything specific. So being able to say, if I don't hit this long run this week, then next week's run is going to be miserable.
Mm,
If I don't keep, follow the progression, I'm already strapped for time to get there. So every single one needs to be dialed. So yeah, like setting your eyes on something and buckling down and doing it. That was one of the greatest things that I learned about myself along the way was, going from never having run more than 6 miles at once to, 37 miles. I went from 6 miles to marathon in 7 weeks. My peak week run was 22 miles, 2 weeks out, 2 weeks out from my 37. The peak week run was supposed to be 22 miles. And then from there, I would taper into less mileage for the next 2 weeks. And I was feeling really good at 22. And I was like, you know what? The jump from 22 to 37 in 2 weeks is going to be daunting. Like, I don't confidence-wise, I don't know if I can do that. Like mentally, I that's too big of a step. So I was like, you know what, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna keep going. And one Saturday, I just kept going, and I ran a full marathon around Lady Bird Lake. And I got home, and that banked some confidence for me. Because now I had run 26 miles. The difference between 26 and 37 isn't, it's not insane compared to 22 to 37. Um, so yeah, it was just a really cool progression along the way. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what you're capable of if you set your mind to something and make it your top priority for 9 weeks.
Wow, brilliant, man. It's like you did go to the moon, and a lot of times we get that technology that we developed to go to space, like the microwave, and we get to use it in the house. What are some of those things that you learned about yourself or just about being human and what we're capable of?
Man, man. I mean, one of the biggest things, one of the most, the, one of the greatest gifts that I was able to give myself through that experience was understanding more about what my ceiling actually is, right? Before I thought my ceiling was 6 miles, right? I thought I can't run more than 6 miles. There's no way, right? And then I go on this path and I realize I keep pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. And, I go into race day and I will share, I never had doubts along the way that I would finish it because of the way I set the goal. And I didn't set the goal in a comfortable, safe way, but I set out to say I was going to run 37 miles on my birthday, right? So I had all day. I had all day. And worst case scenario, I could freaking like walk this, I did the math, 20-minute mile. I could walk this thing in 12 hours. So there was no doubt that I would finish it. And I just knew it was going to be hard. And then going into it the day of, like, there wasn't, there was no fear present in my mind because I had already made peace with, I'd already accepted worst case scenario. Like, it'll just take all day. Um, so going into it with no fear and being able to do that has me now realizing that wasn't my ceiling. And if that wasn't my ceiling, what is? What, it has me curious to maybe explore that further.
Amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Our ceilings are just
They're made up.
illusions.
They're made up. They're made up.
Wow. Has any of this translated to work, business, relationships? Like how was the rest of your life while doing this?
I mean, I would say, I was a better version of myself in pretty much all areas along the way. I was committed to something. I was following a plan. I was prioritizing recovery. I was running every morning. I was doing early morning runs. So my sleep was good. My nutrition was more dialed. I was showing up in my relationship, better. It gave me, like a sense of purpose and this accomplishment, this feeling. Like you mentioned, you can't fake this, right? Like, you have your Strava runs and you can't fake a 13-mile Saturday morning run on Strava. Like, it's real. So it's like this real accomplishment. So yeah, I think it spilled over into all areas of my life. And what I'm finding now is it's it's helped me become more of a leader in subtle ways, right? I'm not intending to inspire by doing that. I didn't set out to do this well, maybe if I do this, I can get some other people running. But a beautiful side effect is some of my boys now are like, they're running more. You mentioned you're running, you thought of me in your run and you pushed it further. I talked about how I want to start running trails and mentioned the possibility of running rim to rim with my boys this year. And now it's a topic of conversation. And now one of my buddies goes, well, damn, if that's really going to happen, like, I'm not in shape for that. I better start training. Right. So now it's like, there's this collective desire to start exploring this further. I've shared openly that, I wanted to explore the more national parks more. And, I believe this journey that I'm on is partly God's way of preparing me to explore these parks the way that I'm actually meant to. Not by car, not, these trails that are 1 to 2 miles from the road, but really get up in there and see it and experience it, right? And now being able to share that with my boys, they're like, damn, well, I kind of want that too. Like I wanna be able to experience these. I wanna be fit to do this when the boys go do that. So now I should probably do that.
That's huge, man. I never thought of it that way. Running, you get to wherever you're running, you really get to know the area.
Yeah.
I haven't ran in any trails, so I'm sure that's how I'll get to know nature at its best.
Yeah.
That's such a huge thing for me. That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Again, man, like there's something about the law of the lid. I think on your bookshelf, I was on your Instagram, 21 Irrefutable Laws, which that's law of the lid. And then of course that famous example too with Roger Bannister is just nobody really ran a 4-minute mile. They thought it was impossible. You would die. Medical supervisors saying it's impossible. Roger Bannister did it. And you know the story, everybody does. Thousands of
Yeah.
people did it thereafter. High schoolers would do it. So we always need inspirations and examples for what's possible because we are creatures of comfort and we just put ourselves in a box. Nobody else is doing that to you except for yourself.
Yeah.
Love that, man. Tell me about the pain because that is something. If I can get some runner's advice too, man, like sometimes maybe I'm walking or running wrong, my foot might get numb or something, or just like, is there like how much technique did you have to learn to endure the pain? And like, what levels of pain did you experience?
Yeah. So what I learned about myself along the way is my limit with running is not aerobically. I can go for, I do a lot of zone 2 training, with the heart rate monitor. I wear the chest strap and I try to keep my heart rate in zone 2 when I'm doing 80% of my runs. So that means my heart rate's not getting above 145 for the most part, which means I'm going slow. Most of my runs are 9 to 10 minute miles. Like I'm not cooking out there. Um, so I feel like aerobically I could probably run all day. Where I break down is my feet. My feet get really sore. I have high arches. The arches break down. Then I start kind of favoring the sides of my feet, and then I start getting pain on the sides of my feet, maybe some like sore tendons in my legs. So like going into the long run, like that's where I was terrified because my long runs leading up to that, a couple of them were hard because of that. So what I did was really leaned into recovery in preparation. Rolling out on the lacrosse ball, stretching more, just a lot of different things like that before and after my runs, just really taking care of my feet and legs in a way that I'd never had to even think about before. So going into the long run, I knew my feet are going to break down first. So how I planned my run, I started at 6 a.m. and I run a 12-mile loop around Lady Bird Lake. So I go as far east and as far west as I possibly can. So I started with a 1 mile run around my block first to knock that out of the way, and then I did three 12-mile loops. I had my fiance set up a little aid station because I live right by Lady Bird. She set up a little aid station at the end of each loop. And a couple friends joined me at certain parts along the way for a little bit of the run. And um, by the end of my first loop, about 13 miles in, I remember telling my friend who was running with me, I was like, I did not expect my feet to already be hurting. Like, okay, here we go. The second loop, so miles 13 to 25, it kind of is like a quiet, subtle buildup of like a little bit more pain, but a lot of it's mental. If you allow your mind to go there and focus on it, like it'll exacerbate. If you allow your mind to kind of, go elsewhere, a lot of times you just run through it and it kind of disappears. Also, I want to come back to this as well at some point. Don't run. I've now started, I've gotten to the point where I don't listen to anything when I'm running, just straight raw dogging it. So as to not escape.
Mm.
Right. So And anyways, by the end of that second lap, basically mile 26 was when I was like, okay, this is hurting. Think I got to mile 28, and most of the last 10 miles it was like a shuffle. Like I wasn't really running because I was in so much, like my feet and knees hurt so bad, to where every step when I was running was so impactful. Um, yeah, the last 10 miles were were painful. They were brutal. There was never any thought of not finishing. It was just, I would like to run this, but every time I try to run, I experience so much pain. So, my running speed got to where it was like 11 and a half, 12.5 minute miles. And I was walking fast at 13.5 minute miles. So low impact, barely any difference in time. So I was, walking a lot of that. You just scooting along. I would try to run for 20, 30 seconds. I'd be like, oh, I can't do this. And, I would drop back into that walk. But that's the sport of ultra marathons is, it's this misnomer that it's ultra running, because it's really not. Running a lot of these ultras at a 15-minute mile pace is elite. Like you can finish in the top 4, top 10 in a lot of these races at a 15-minute mile.
Wow. That is a good perspective. And yesterday, that's kind of what I was doing myself with just a 4-mile run at mile 3 and 4. I'm pretty much doing what you're doing at 30 something. Um, when you feel like you're just kind of at the end, like, and you're moving, you're kind of just doing what you can.
Hmm.
But I'm guessing the pain was just excruciating. Like, there's cold plunge pain because that is pretty painful at first, and then you kind of settle in. This one doesn't, right? It just keeps screaming at you?
Yeah, yeah. Whereas like every step was pain in some capacity, right?
Damn.
But yeah, no, it was. I look back and I'm like, it was a good pain. I'm glad I got to experience it. Like it was, it was a beautiful journey to go on. Very beautiful journey to go on, and to be able to go through that and experience that on my birthday. To spend my whole day, take the day off from my business, and go out there and do that. Learn a lot about myself along the way. Like it was a really, really great way to ring in the new year.
I love how, as far as my algorithm showing, but there's just a lot more hybrid athletes. There's just a lot more people doing truly hard things. Because when I was younger, I didn't know the difference between someone who was natural and who wasn't. I just wanted big muscles.
Yeah.
I just wanted big muscles, and that was the cool thing, to just be jacked. But now I totally see how just men are waking up to what's truly valuable, and that is doing hard things the long way, the hard way, the slow way. Because if you're shooting up steroids, nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's kind of dying out. I see more people caring about being natural. I see more people caring about optimizing their hormones and testosterone, good sleep, like the principles of longevity is a new cool thing.
Mm,
So props to you, man, for being one of those heroes, those influencers that show everybody else that the cool thing is to do the hard.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, man. How much of, originally we actually met in a mushroom journey.
Mm,
Just Lovato. Love you, man. Um, for me, increasing the strength of the true self, the one that tells you to keep going. I don't really know exactly how to explain the witness versus the ego there. Um, for me, the more I've been able to meditate, the more I've been able to just keep doing hard things. That's where you meet that voice and you
mm,
say, "No, I can do more." How much has your plant medicine journeys aided into this huge accomplishment?
mm, mm. So, I'll share. I mean, I've done a few ceremonies, not a lot. I wouldn't say I'm incredibly seasoned or, experienced or a veteran in the plant medicine space. But time and time again in these ceremonies, when I come out of these ceremonies, the big takeaway is usually some variation of experience life more. Stop working so hard. Stop trying so hard to build this thing, to chase this thing, and just exist more. I think of that, really with any of the ceremonies that I've come out of, the big takeaway has been, wow, I need to play a different game.
Hmm.
I do really great at whatever game I play. Now, if I can reallocate my focus, or redistribute my marbles, put my marbles in different baskets, I can get really good at playing a game that truly serves me and experience life more, have more fun, experience more joy, get out and connect with nature more. So what those journeys have done is plant seeds inside of me to get outside more, to get away from the computer, to put the phone down, step aside from my business, and as I mentioned the term earlier, to like rewild myself, to find passions that aren't building a business, building a team, managing an operation, um, build skills, acquire talents, things like that. So this running thing is just me exploring a curiosity. I went out to Big Bend with my friends last May, and I just had this itch inside of me to just like take off and start running the trails rather than just walking. And we were with our partners and everything like that, so it wasn't conducive to just going on a trail run. But that's where I realized, like, I want to break free. I want to break free of these chains that I've placed on myself and just run. And I think that is a huge part of what some of these ceremonies have done for me is kind of plant that seed or open me up to that version of myself.
I can totally relate, especially about rewilding and then acquiring skills and talents. And I can mostly just call it, you've fully identified with the warrior for most of your career, probably accomplishing, just
Mm,
getting it done, executing discipline. And it's a fun place to be at, honestly. Like it has its own merits. It's like winning championships in that arena, but it ends up becoming maybe a comfort zone. It ends up being autopilot. And what plant medicines have also shown me is, okay, maybe I need to incorporate some of the lover,
mhm.
smell the roses. And this is actually what running will do. Even though you kind of applied some of that warrior energy into running by its own nature is slowing down almost.
Softened me.
Yeah, right? It's everybody says how great it for mental health. It is. And that's because you're with yourself and you're tuning into every step.
Mhm.
And compared to cars, like you're going pretty slow. So you're seeing the scenery around you, you're feeling the wind, you're feeling the weather, you're in tune with that. And then you're also in tune with like what you ate and how your body feels. So it really factors all those things in.
Mhm.
I guess I'm a city guy because I'm here in Austin. And so rewilding is about getting out in nature more. So like this conversation has really inspired me to take this run, like drive down to the trail and do the run
Mhm.
at the trail. Not Ladybird actually, but
At
Barton.
Barn, yeah.
And it's amazing too because it's about reconnecting to what we have forgotten with this concrete all around us. We were definitely evolved with nature
Yeah.
like this. And that is what the plant medicines will show you is returning to our roots. Like we have only had modern civilization for just a short period of time.
Mhm.
Yet we forgot
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. I as I reflect on that running journey, that 37-mile run, it really it really feels like what it was for me was a pilgrimage back home to myself. And, I think of the journey of just what was playing in my ears throughout that 9 weeks of training. I started out listening to music. I would queue up a playlist of music and listen to that the whole time. And, after a couple weeks, I moved on from music to podcasts. I started listening to like the Founders podcast and almost like studying business. And I was like, well, I could use this time to be productive. And then that led me into listening to interviews with like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and like studying greatness. And then that led me into David Goggins and listening to him. And from there, it led me to taking the headphones out and keeping them with me, but saying, I'm only going to use these if I really need to. Because what I realized I was doing with that music was escaping. Like I go on these 2 mile runs, and it's incredible time to connect with yourself, right? If you think about running without music and you're like, oh man, I can't do that. It's so hard. I'm in my head the whole time. Like that, that you're escaping that. So when I took the headphones out and went on some of these long run Saturdays and didn't listen to anything, after the first 2 miles are gruesome, and it's nothing but your own voice, right? You have to face that and you can't escape that. It's you and the gravel trail and your own voice. So by the end of that run, you've made peace with that, right? So I got to know myself along the way. And now I look forward to not listening to anything. So I can hear people laughing. I can hear nature. I can hear these things around me. And that was really the whole point anyways, was connecting and getting outside to connect with that. So I think that was a really beautiful revelation I had along the way.
That is so huge. That's so important. I can relate to that too. I think I'm recently new into this coaching program, and they're doing a dopamine fast, like protocol reset completely. And part of that is included no music with lyrics, no media, no podcasts. And I'm like questioning, are you sure no podcast? Like you maybe like crime, true crime or something. But um what about, information? And someone commented, the information you're looking for is in the silence you're avoiding.
Hmm.
That's all I needed to see. Like, wow,
Uh,
I don't need another this or that. Like, I need to be
mm-hmm.
at rest and at peace with me. And so this dopamine fast I'm on day 10, and it's been incredible. Part of the unlock too there is he threw in semen retention as well. So like when you cut off so many of what distracts us from sugar, caffeine, media, just like you were saying in your run, you totally get to know the voice in your head. Because so much of our life is busy avoidance. And then, just like in my run the other day, without headphones or anything, one of the best moments, like you were saying, is getting to hear the sounds around you and see the sights and just totally be there. There was like 30 or 40 like pigeons or whatever birds they were. And I kind of was roaming past them, and they flew towards me, and it was so mesmerizing.
Mm,
Like, wow, when maybe seen this in a movie or two where that they try to recreate that, but like that was special.
amazing.
I'm sure you've had so many countless observations, so many countless breakthroughs and just processing your thoughts
Mhm.
without the noise.
Yeah, yeah. And the biggest thing for me is, like you said, it's allowed me to get to know myself. And before, I think of this with the sitting in the cold too, there was like this fear of being alone with myself, right? And that's, the doer in me. I stay busy. I stay occupied all the time, and maybe it's an unconscious form of escapism, but really, that this journey for me, and back to the medicine ceremonies, they always point me back to slowing down, connect deeper with yourself, connect deeper with God. And as long as I'm distracting myself, it's blocking that connection.
Another you were talking about too, balance, the flow of life, experiences. What are some ways that you're doing that?
Hmm. Connecting with my friends more, really, really slowing down. I tend to work a lot. Um, the lie I tell myself is that I really, really, and I enjoy building, right? And I do. And, a lot of it is in like this, rooted in like lack or fear or scarcity or like a discontentment. So, working on adding more flow into my life, more spaciousness. I'm a 30-second walk from Zilker Park, right? Why am I not there every day? Why am I not, sitting in the grass every single day? Why am I not taking my lunch there? Things like that. Just being a better friend, partner, just being more present and not, always playing the game of I'm trying to get over there. I'm trying to be somewhere else that's not here.
Where are you trying to get? So, like, with work that occupies your time, what's driving you there?
Mm, it's a great question. Um, I really in a big thing is building financial security, stability,
Yeah,
right?
Ed defined.
Yeah. 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 So building financial stability and for me, I've got an investment goal to get into getting like buying real estate properties that will create recurring income for me. So now I know exactly like what that number looks like and everything. Before I think it was a lot of just like shooting in a general direction, right? So yeah, it's I'll admit it's scarcity driven. It's I'm working to be stable or fearing being unstable, right? It's like a fear that's driving. Um,
It
yes.
is relatable. I think every
Yeah.
guy's going through that too of like, what is financial security? For one person's a million, for another person's 10 million.
Mhm.
And then if you really like start diving into that,
Yeah.
you're right. It's scarcity driven because if it's for the kids, future kids, or it's for whatever, there's people who have like $0, maybe negative, or like in poverty, raising happy families.
Mhm.
Kind of, I haven't traveled enough to notice it, but I have seen in my own culture where, have you heard that Mexican fisherman story?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful story. I love that.
Isn't it? I always try to
Yeah.
remember that too. Like, okay, my life is right now.
Mhm.
But the thing about it too, though, is like you set those worthy goals, but then you forget about them and you just enjoy the journey.
Mhm.
In your work, is that what you're doing? Do you feel like you're enjoying it?
It goes back and forth, like for me, I get caught up playing the game. I get caught almost like taking the game too seriously. I get, like I get so in it. What do they say? It's hard to read the label when you're stuck inside of the bottle, right? So I get in it and I'm playing the game and I'm playing the game and I start taking it too seriously and it becomes the life, right? And then I try to fit being a better partner, being a better friend. I try to fit creating these life experiences inside of this work schedule, building it around this work schedule. When I, think back to, you know, 8, 9 years ago, the reason I left the 9 to 5 and got into, building my own thing was to have the freedom to choose how I spend my life and how I build my life and all of that. So, um, yeah, I get caught up in it a lot. Right. And that's why I'm doing this work. Right. That's why I set out on that running journey. And, a huge part of it was to color my life more beautiful, to do more things that excite me and get to know myself deeper.
And it can ebb and flow too. Like, I love how you're saying that sometimes you take the game too seriously. And there's some games that I do take seriously too. Like, if it's a strategy game, like chess or something, usually I go there and I want to win, or I want to like see how I can stack up. And I haven't played in a while, but then you have people like my brother who every game is about just laughing and talking shit and just
Hmm.
like joking around. And if you're with a big enough group of guys, I was playing disc golf and all of us there were about the same level. So the competition kind of died and everybody was just talking the whole time. But I don't think everybody there was a big disc golfer. So if you really love it, there is a lot of fun sometimes in the competition.
Hmm.
But then sometimes it's more about just who's coming around.
Yeah. I think a huge part of it goes back to what level of attachment is there,
Attachment.
right?
Yeah,
And I think
huge.
one of the things that I struggle with is there's a lot of attachment to the business. There's a lot of attachment to the success of the business where the invitation for me and I'm aware of it and I'm working through becoming detached where it's like, hey, I can go into this every day and I can play full out when I'm in it. but at the end of the day, I don't care, and I'm detached from if it makes it or not,
That's
right? And you
huge.
take your
Yeah.
power back, because when there's attachment, you're giving your power away.
Incredible. Yeah. That's the key. Have you had a business before or anything that you had lost before? Or is this the first baby and you just
Not the first baby. I had an online fitness coaching business for
oh,
about
that's right.
5 years before getting into what I do now, which is a real estate business. And I walked away from that because it didn't serve me anymore. I was burnt out, and it wasn't aligned. What I built wasn't aligned with where I was, who I was, and where I was heading. Um, but to the attachment thing, as I reflect, when that business felt the most fun was when it was a side hustle while I was working the 9 to 5. There was zero attachment to it. It was this thing where I was just, coaching some people, having fun, building this fun thing, and it didn't need to pay my bills. And the minute it became this thing where it needs to pay the bills and I'm trying to scale this thing, then there's this attachment. And then it gets
Yeah.
hard, and it gets sticky.
Yeah, to the outcomes. Well, that's the teeter-totter balance that you're tasked with,
It's the
and
work.
yeah, and the high levels too, but attachment is such a good concept because in the end, we die.
Hmm.
We don't keep any of it.
Impermanence.
Impermanence. Yeah, we don't get out of this alive. Tell me more about rewilding.
Mm, mm. I think of that psilocybin journey. We sat together, and so many of the breakthroughs that came through were like that. I'm going to heal people through music, and I don't play an instrument. I don't play music right now. And there was an invitation there to follow that curiosity, follow that loose thread, pick up music. The running thing, I want to start camping more and just getting out in nature more, and all of these things. And a lot of these subtle urges inside of me are like this desire to do primal things, this desire to get the boys together and do these camping trips, these rugged trips where it's going to be hard for all of us and we're just going to figure it out together. Um, it's just bringing this primal brotherhood back into my life. I think over the last couple of years, I've kind of gotten away from like the things that are primal. Um, putting my head down and focusing on building business. I miss out on opportunity for deep, deep brotherhood that I'm yearning for. I've got wonderful brothers in my life, but I recognize that I don't nurture those relationships like I would like to. So rewilding is getting, getting back to that primal
Back to
side
the
of what
tribe.
yeah,
Back to
exactly.
camping out there. Like I agree too. Like knowing plants, animals, birds, reptiles, like
Hmm.
knowing the names and what they do and why, and learning how to survive and learning how to backpack, learning how to just be in touch and in tune with nature. And that is part of my journey too, that seems like people who are on that journey do wake up to, because this earth is huge and vast and so abundant. And one of the abundant awakenings was like the earth has everything that we could possibly ever want or need
Mm,
for free already, for free. Especially if you've driven in the countryside, you see that there's way more country land than there is cities by a million. And yeah, I think when you do step back into being wild, whatever that means to you, is stepping back into abundance
mhm,
and slowing down the nervous system. Because, yeah, of course, I do like to be comfortable too, but that is what causes all these issues, is being comfortable.
mhm,
And then you speak to the brotherhood community aspect. If you look in blue zones, if you look at cultures where they live to 80, 90, or in cultures like Japan, their purpose is to, like, the reason why they're living so long and so vibrantly and so happy, like, it's not just the years, but the life in the years, is because they find meaning in all the little things that they
Mm,
do, and especially their friends and community, especially when you're older. Takes a long time to make an old friend, so start now.
mhm,
And the ones that you cultivate over the years probably get more meaningful through the years.
mhm,
So these are the codes that we're learning thanks to the plant teachers who are probably just teaching us how ancient these ways are that really nourish the soul, make you feel fulfilled and connected. This is why I do the podcast too, because it's a good drop in of intense
mm,
presence. This is why people do love podcasts too,
yeah,
because it's like their own little mastermind, and then the energy just comes in and ideas start flowing out the best of what you've been able to collect. I remember too in our journey, um, not even words, honestly, for the whole day. And we're just sunbathing outside on his deck there, each doing our own thing. But such a world of epiphanies and just insights happening.
mm,
I think the world will be a better place too when men learn how to be healthy masculine and also develop their healthy feminine.
mm,
This is actually what this caffeine cleanse has taught me is caffeine has really taught me how much of a mask it really is on our nervous system. So I've been taking a lot more naps lately.
mm,
Like if I'm tired, I'm just gonna lay down. Now, of course, when I start working back at the dealership, I'm gonna have to go back on maybe some caffeine grind for a period of time. It's a sacrifice because every man that is awake will decide what lifestyle they wanna maybe cruise control in.
mm,
Maybe that's the wrong word, but be able to maintain at a high level while still succeeding the rest of their life. What are some of the last takeaways you might want to mention from the run, from plant medicine, from the yin and yang? What are some of the last ideas you got?
You had asked, I don't remember the exact question you had asked, but something along the lines of, what does that rewilding look like for you? And I'll just share a few more examples that came up as we were chatting here. One is I learned a little bit of how to wake surf last year. A friend's got a boat and we were out on Lake Travis, and I had some fun wake surfing a few times, and I think of the deep presence I felt when I was out there doing that. And I live a life where I wake up and I think about my business and all the things I need to do, the massive to-do list, and I go to sleep and it's the last thing I think about before I go to sleep, the first thing I think about when I wake up. And I remember the feeling I had when I was on this boat, when I was out there with my friends and wake surfing, and nothing else mattered. I didn't think about anything else. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I was so deeply present right there. It was like I felt like I was a little kid running around on the playground just playing, like just absolutely tapped in. And I wasn't good and none of that mattered. So that's an example of like that rewilding. It's like this just deep play. Other things are, I think of anytime someone asks me, so what do you like to do for fun? What do you do besides work? And I'm like, I don't really know. It's an awkward thing to not have anything to say to that, right? So developing passions, rather than, oh, we go to the park sometimes, right? Like developing real passions. Um, and there's a couple things I really plan to do this year. One of them is I'm absolutely freaking terrified of heights. I've skydived a couple times, but I want to get skydive certified.
Nice.
And the reason for that is because I like to travel, and I know that the rest of my life I'm going to be traveling the world a lot. I just know that. That's the life I'm creating for myself. And how much would it open up your world if you had the skill to jump out of a plane anywhere you travel? Like, when I travel, like I do a jump. When you're skydive certified, you can do a jump for like $30 pretty much anywhere, because nobody needs to, you just get to hop in the plane and just jump. Nobody needs to be with you. Um, So to be able to do that and see the world from up there and all the cool places I go. So that's one thing I want to do. Again, I'm terrified, but the only thing that stands between me and doing that is learning the skill. It's acquiring the skill. It's something that I could acquire in I don't know, 4 jumps, you know? So there's that. And then the other one, very similar, is getting scuba dive certified. I've never I've never swam in, open water. I've never, gone in water like that. I'm probably terrified with that too. But again, it's just a skill. It's a skill to learn. And once you acquire that, anywhere I travel in the world, I can experience that. So there are these skills that once you learn them, and the same thing with being able to run, run trails, being able to run for more than 2 miles, there are these skills where once you acquire them, it opens up your ability to experience the world. Because right now, I think of like the runs, I didn't have the body freedom to experience, the national parks in that way. Um, so yeah, I want to acquire skills where they're these high ROI skills that will open up my world. They'll open up my ability to experience all of life, jumping out of a plane without needing to be tandem, being able to skydive somewhere, being able to run and get to whatever peak I want without needing to, walk it or being limited to a car.
Love that, man. The reason why that keeps coming in my head is because this life is so beautiful
Mm.
and because this earth has so much to show us. Because I have the same desires as well. Same thing about music. It's
Mhm.
just like you do get your curiosity back. You do get your wonder back. You get your imagination. You get your zest for life when you know how to soften and smell the roses and slow down. Because for me, for a while, when I was chasing the corporate ladder in my 20s, a fully obsessed kind of type A person, my world was just turning gray.
Mm.
Music
Mhm.
wasn't as sweet. But I want to close with your thoughts and the best that you've learned in the art of making friendships and community. How do you do that?
Mm. How do I do that? That's incredible. Since moving to Austin, I've lived in Austin 4.5 years, and my fiance and I moved here from Orlando. We were moving in together for the first time, and we said, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. We can choose anywhere. And we're like, where do we want to, what would we want in a city? Where would we want to live? And we each kind of made a list of what we wanted. And we compared our lists, and, our top three looked relatively the same. And we're like, that looks like Austin. Let's go. And we had a chance to move here, start our relationship like fresh with a clean slate. And we got to choose what type of community we wanted to create. We got to build it from the ground up. And it was one of the most beautiful things, one of the most beautiful experiences to have. And I highly recommend doing this with a partner. Move somewhere, start fresh, build from the ground up, because it's so incredible. But we got a chance to decide what type of people do we want to surround ourselves with. Because when I lived in Orlando in my 20s, they were my drinking friends. That was when I was drinking beer, when I was going out to the bars every weekend and all of that. Um, so I got a chance to choose new, right? Um, so what I've learned, since then is, one, you can have, whatever type of community you want. I used to stand on the outside and look in and think, it'd be nice to kind of fit in there, right? I realized a lot of that was limits I placed on myself. Um, but now it's be the type of people you want to surround yourself with. Going back to the very first thing we talked about, what got me started on that running journey and with those goals was, I want to surround myself with brothers who do hard things, who do primal things. And I want to be in a room of people who are going to challenge me, who are doing harder things than what I'm used to doing. So I realize I need to be that type of person. I need to be someone those people want to spend time with. Right. And I think of, that's kind of how I hate to say engineered, but that's kind of how I found my partner, Rachel. I hit 30 and I realized, oh man, all my friends are getting married and having kids and all this. And I'm still, having a hard time finding a relationship, right? And I had to get clear on what type of partner do you want? What type of man is compatible with that type of woman? And that becomes the goal. Become that. So I think that's the greatest thing that I can say about, cultivating community is be the type of person you want to attract. If you want loving community, grounded presence, people that'll go deep with you, be that. Be willing to give that to others. And I found it's a lot like a boomerang. It'll come back around.
Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Thank you for
It was a
having me.
good time. Everybody, I'll put his links down below. Anything that you want to promote?
Ah, Just find something that lights you up, like whatever it is. Nothing for myself. Like I don't have, it's
No
not,
plugs.
no plugs for myself. But just if I could leave anybody with one thing, it's like, what's that curiosity inside of you where you're like, I'm curious about this. I'd like to do that. Like, I saw you, picking up the guitar, and like, is it picking up a skill, whatever it is, like find that curiosity and just lean into it, because that's what I've been doing these last 6 months is just leaning into whatever curiosities I've found, and whichever ones stick. Like, don't be afraid to pick things up and put them down. Pick up an instrument, put it down if it doesn't stick, and just keep doing that. And you'll be surprised what you might stumble into.
Love that, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, very great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Of course.